So let us begin Volume 3, Chapter 1 of what will be the end of this, because this is the last volume, and considering how things are going, something's gotta give. Day after day, week after week, passed away on my return to Geneva, and I could not collect the courage to recommence my work. I feared the vengeance of the disappointed fiend, yet I was unable to overcome my repugnance to the task which was enjoyed, which was enjoined me. I found that I could not compose a female without again devoting several months to profound study and laborious uh, disquisition, discretion, discretion. I think it's the word. It's spelled weird. I had heard of some discoveries having been made by my English philosopher, the knowledge of which was material to my success. I sometimes thought of attaining my father's consent to visit England for this purpose, but I clung to every pretense of delay, and shrank from taking the first step in an undertaking whose immediate necessity began to appear less absolute to me. A change indeed had taken place in me. My health, which had hitherto declined, was now much restored, and my spirits, when unchecked by the memory of my unhappy promise, rose proportionably. My father saw this change with pleasure, and he turned his thoughts towards the best method of eradicating the remains of my melancholy, which every now and then would return by fits and with a devouring blackness overcast the approaching sunrise. I passed whole days on the lake alone in the little boat, watching the clouds and listening to the ripplings of the waves, silent and listless. But the fresh air and bright sun seldom failed to restore me to some degree of composure, and on my return I met the salutations of my friend with a readier smile and more cheerful heart. It was after my return from one of these rambles that my father, calling me aside, thus addressed me. I am happy to remark, my dear son, that you have resumed your former pleasures, seem to be returning to yourself. And yet you are still unhappy, and still avoid our society. For some time I was lost in conjecture as the cause of this, but yesterday an idea struck me, and if it well founded, I conjure you to avow it. Res- uh, reserve, reserve on such a point would be not only useless, but drawn down terrible misery on us all. I trembled violently at the ex- at his exordium, and my father continued. I confess, my son, that I have always looked forward to your marriage to our dear Elizabeth, as the tie of our domestic comfort, and the stay of my declining years. You were attached to each other from your earliest infancy. You studied together and appeared in dispositions and tastes entirely suited to one another. But so blind is the experience of man that I convinced to be the best assistance to my plan may have entirely destroyed it. You perhaps regard her as your sister, without any wish that she might become your wife. Nay, you may have met with another woman whom you may love, and considered yourself as bound in honor to Elizabeth. The struggle may occasion the poignant misery which you appear to feel. My dear father, reassure yourself. I love my cousin tenderly and sincerely. I never saw any woman who excited as Elizabeth does my warmest admiration and affection. My future hopes and prospects are entirely bound up in the exception of our expectation of our union. The, ex- the expression of your sentiments of this subject, my dear Victor, gives me more pleasure than I have for some time. Okay, bye, Rowan. Have a good night or whatever you're doing. My dear Victor, gives me some pleasure more than I have for some time experienced. If you feel thus, we shall assuredly be happy. However, present events may cast a gloom over us, but it is gloom which appears to have taken so strong a hold of your mind that I wish to dissipate. Tell me, therefore, whether you object to an intimate solemnization of the marriage. We have been unfortunate, and recent events have drawn us from that everyday tranquillity, befitting many years and infirmities. You are younger, yet I do not suppose possessed as you are of competent fortune, that an early marriage would at all interfere with my future plans of honor and utility that you have formed. Do not suppose, however, that I wish to dedicate happiness to you, or that a delay on your part would cause me any serious uneasiness. Interpret my words with candor, and answer me, I conjure you, with confidence and sincerity. I listened to my father in silence, and remained for some time incapable of offering any reply. I revolved rapidly in my mind a multitude of thoughts, and endeavored to arrive at some conclusion. Alas, to me, the idea of an intimate union with my Elizabeth was one of honor and dismay. I was bound by a solemn promise that I had not yet fulfilled, and dared not break, or if I did, what manifold miseries might not impend over me and my devoted family. Could I enter into a festival with this deadly weight that yet hanging around my neck, and bowing me to the ground? I must perform my engagement, and let the monster depart with his mate, before I allowed myself to enjoy the delight of a union from which I expected peace. I remembered also the necessity imposed upon me of either journeying to England or entering into a long correspondence with those philosophers of that country, whose knowledge and discoveries were of indispensable use to me in my present undertaking. The latter method of attaining the desired intelligence was dilatory and unsatisfactory. Besides, I had an insurmountable aversion to the idea of engaging myself in my lonesome task in my father's house, while in habits of familiar intercourse with those I loved. Oh my gosh, I love it when there's so many big words in one sentence, and then it's like, God damn it. My mind cannot handle all these big words. Where was I? I knew that 1,000 fearful accidents might occur, the slightest of which would disclose a tale to thrill all connected with me with horror. I was aware also that I should often lose all self-command, all capacity of hiding the horrid sensations that would possess me during the progress of my unearthly occupation. I must absent myself from all I loved while thus employed. Once commenced, it would quickly be achieved, and I might be restored to my family in peace and happiness. My promise fulfilled, the monster would depart forever, or so my fond fancy imagined. Some accident might meanwhile occur to destroy him and put an end to my slavery forever. These feelings dictated my answer to my father. I expressed a wish to visit England, by concealing the true reasons of this request. I clothed my desires under a guise which excited no suspicion, while I urged my desire with an earnest that easily included my father to comply. After so long a period of an absorbing melancholy that resembled madness in its intensity and effects, he was glad to find that I was capable of taking pleasure in the idea of such a journey, and he hoped that the change of scenery and varied amusement would, before my return, have restored me entirely to myself. The duration of my absence was left to my own choice. A few months, or at the most a year, was a period contemplated. One parental precaution he had taken to ensure my having a companion. Without previously communicating with me, he had, in concert with Elizabeth, arranged that Saval should join me in Starsburg. This inferred that with the solitude I could cover, God damn. This inferred with the solitude I coveted for the procession. Thank you. Procession of my tasks. Oh my god. Mary Shelley's starting to use them big words, and my brain understands them and reading them to myself. But when it comes to reading aloud, what does this word mean? I don't know anymore. What are words? You know, it's hard for me to imagine. That's a little hard. That's a little high. That should be lower. That needs to be lower. Yet, as the commencement of my journey, the presence of my friend could in no way be independent and true. I rejoiced that thus I should be saved many hours of lonely, maddening reflection. Nay, Henry might stand between me and the intrusion of my foe. If I were alone, would he not at times force his abhorred presence on me, to remind me of my task or to contemplate its progress? Oh my god. Single digits. Inside head, read the word perfect. Try to say word. Get yes. The funny thing is I feel like every voice actor can agree with me too, because there's sometimes you read so much and you try and voice act and then you just like go, what are words? Have you seen like the voice actor clips where they just go blah 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 blah? It's to make sure that they don't use the voice line. It's to purposely make sure that they don't use a voice line. But man, thank you for the seals. I will say for my subathon, I may turn that down because I like the seals. The full minute. I know, right? Oh my gosh, yes. Any anime like outtakes are so funny because now I understand them. I understand them. Damn. But I also understand like audiobook readers now. Oh my god. Anyways, let me continue reading. How much, oh, we got like a little bit left in this chapter and then chapter 2. Nice. You know, my mom once asked me, she was like, how long do your readings take? I'm like, it depends. If chat really wants to stop me from reading, it'll take 3 to 4 hours. If I'm able to somewhat read through it, it'll take about 2 hours. It's like such a massive difference. Oh my gosh. You know, once I finish with this reading, I leave with the knowledge of knowing I will only have to read 3 chapters next Saturday. And then we're done. I do have another book set up to be read afterwards, so we already got it. Minecraft, Axolot, Orma at Walmart, and Hallmark. Well, where do you want me to go for it? Because I got both around me. Anyways, let me continue on. Oh my goodness. You gotta get the burp out. Blech. Nice. To England, therefore, I was bound, and it was understood that my union with Elizabeth would take place immediately on my return. My father's age rendered him extremely aversive to delay. For myself, there was one reward I promised myself from my dearest toils, one consolation for my unparalleled suffering. It was the prospect of the day when, enfranchised from my miserable slavery, I might claim Elizabeth and forget the past in my union with her. That almost look like a tongue. Oh my gosh, it does. That does. But yeah, I may get it, but the thing is that my Christmas tree is really small. I'll take a picture for it for you guys. Oh yeah, this will be the first time on Twitter that I'll be actually showing you guys my little Christmas tree. It's tiny. It is tiny. And the reason being is because I'm sick and tired of pulling out the big 7-foot one. I so we always have we have a tiny tree. We actually have 3 trees. We have a little Nightmare Before Christmas tree. We have a little Charlie Brown Christmas tree, like actual Charlie Brown Christmas tree. And then we have our actual tree. It's a lot. It's a lot. I have a weeb tree. Nice. That's the true tree we need in our lives. Yeah. I think my Charlie Brown one is somewhere over there, but I forget. Anyways, I now made I now made arrangements for my journey, but one feeling haunted me, which filled me with fear and agitation during my absence. I should leave my friends unconscious of the existence of their enemy, and unprotected from this attack, exacerbated as he might be my departure. I want to start. Ooh, nice. We got Disney. We got so many Disney ornaments. My mom, like, I guess ordered them from somewhere, and we have so many Disney ornaments. So the entire thing is just Disney-fied. Even though that my mom and I like Disney, but at the same time, we don't like Disney. So it's kind of funny. But I'll take a picture when it's done during. I usually set it up on December 1st, so once it's done, it'll be posted up. So, but he had promised to follow me wherever I might go, and would he not accompany me to England? This imagination was dreadful in itself, but soothing, inasmuch as it supposed the safety of my friends. I was I was agonized with the idea of the possibility that the reverse of this might happen, and my present sensations strongly intend intimate intimate intimidated That might wait. Intimated. Strongly intimated that, oh my gosh, it is intimated, oh my god, that the fiend would follow me and exempt my family from the danger of this machinations. Stretch, thank you for the stretch. Oh, I actually cracked my back there. It has be cracking my back. Don't need to look like a shrimp. Anyways, oh, my neck. I think I've been sleeping wrong on my bed because my neck hurts awfully. Anyways, yes. It was in the later end of August that I again quitted my native country. My journey had been my own suggestion, and Elizabeth therefore accused, but she was filled with disquiet of the idea of my suffering. Away from her, the inroads of misery and grief. It had been her care which provided me a company in Seville, and yet a man is blind to 1,000 minute circumstances which call forth a woman's seduction, siduous attention. She longed to bid me hasten my return. 1,000 conflicting emotions rendered her mute, as she bade me a tearful, silent farewell. I threw myself into the carriage that was to convey me away, hardly knowing whither I was going and careless of what was passing around. I remembered only that it was with a bitter anguish that I reflected on it to order that my chemical instruments should be packed to go with me. Filled with dreary imaginations, I passed through many beautiful and majestic scenes, but my eyes were fixed and unobserving. I could only think of the Borne of my travels, and the work which was to occupy me whilst they endured. You know, the funny thing is that when I was reading this, I could only imagine just like him going, "See you later," and just hopping in, like, like throwing himself into the fucking carriage like a cartoon. I love my brain when I can imagine how the scenery would go, and that's all I can think of. It's just like, goodbye, whoop, yeet, I'm out. Yes. Anyways, I will say that this chapter, and I think the next chapter, yeah, this chapter and the next chapter talk a lot about scenery, and it gets kind of boring here and there, but just we're gonna get through it. We're gonna get through it. There's a lot of looking at nature stuff, but it makes sense kind of because it's like there's all this nature around and he's been bastardizing it, so kind of makes sense. The contradictory of how he's so enamored with everything of the nature, but then he has created with his own two hands something that is not of this world. So, after some days spent in listless uh, indolence, during which I traversed many leagues, I arrived at Strasbourg, which I waited 2 days for Seville. He came. Alas, how great was the contrast between us! He was alive to every new scene, joyful when he saw the beauties of the setting sun, and more happy than he had beheld it rise and recommence a new day. He pointed out to me the shifting colors of the landscape and the appearances of the sky. This is what it is to live, he cried. How I enjoy existence! But you, my dear Frankenstein, wherefore are you desponding and sorrowful? In truth, I was occupied by gloomy thoughts, and neither saw the descent of the evening star nor the golden sunrise in the Rhine. And you, my friend, would be far more amused with the journal of Zoel, who observed the scenery with an eye of feeling and delight, than in listening to my reflections. I, a miserable wretch, haunted by a curse that shut up every avenue to enjoyment. We, oh my gosh, reading this every once in a while, where Victor turns and is talking outside of the book and what he's telling, because remember, this entire thing of Frankenstein is Victor von Frankenstein telling this to a dude that he just met. Well, technically not a dude that he just met, but telling this all to a captain of a ship, and that captain is telling this all to his sister. These are all technically in letters. Technically. But oh my gosh, is it wow. So whenever it says, and to you, my friend, and he's not speaking, he's saying to you, the person that he's telling it to. Which is kind of, I just realized that. It's in small points here and there where it reminds you. Remember, I'm telling this to a person. We had agreed to descend the Rhine in a boat from Starsburg to Rotterdam, whence we might take shipping for London. During the voyage, we passed many willowy islands and saw several beautiful towns. We stayed a day in Mayhem, and on the 5th, from our departure from Starsburg, arrived at Mayence. The course of Rhine below Mayence becomes much more picturesque. The river descends rapidly and winds between hills not high but steep and of beautiful forms. We saw many ruined castles standing at the edges of precipices, surrounded by black woods, high and inaccessible. This part of Rhine, indeed, presents a singularly variegated landscape. In one spot you view rugged hills, ruined castles overlooking treacherous precipices, and with the dark Rhine rushing beneath. And on the sudden turn of a promontory. Promontory? I have no idea what that means. Flourishing vineyards with green sloping banks and a meandering river and populous towns occupy the scene. We've traveled at the time of the vintage and heard the song of the laborers as we gilded down the stream. The vintage it means that the vineyards are being collected for them to go into wine. So they're collecting from the vineyards. So the vintage is like the harvest of the grapes for the wine. Even I, depressed in mind and my spirits continually agitated by gloomy feelings, even I was pleased. I lay at the bottom of the boat, and as I gazed on the cloudless blue sky, I seemed to drink in a tranquillity to which I had long been a stranger. And if these were my sensations, if these were my sensations, who can describe those of Henry? He felt as if he had been transported to fairyland and enjoyed a happiness seldom tasted by man. I have seen, he said, the most beautiful scenes of my own country. I have visited the lakes of Lurken and Ur, which the snowy mountains descended almost perpetually to the water, casting black and impenetrable shades. What would cause a gloomy and mournful appearance were it not for the most verdant islands that revive the eye of their gay appearance? I have seen the lake agitated by a tempest, when the wind tore up whirlwinds of water and gave you the idea of what the waterspout must be on the great ocean, and the waves dash with fury at the base of the mountain, where the priest and his mistress were overwhelmed by an avalanche, and where their dying voices are still said to be heard amid the pauses of the nightly wind. I have seen the mountains of Lavas and Pais de Vour, but this country, Victor, pleases me more than all those wonders. The mountains of Switzerland are more majestic and strange, but there is a charm in the banks of the divine river that I never before was equalled. Look at that castle which overhangs your precipice, and that also on the island, almost concealed amongst the foliage of those lovely trees. And now that the group of laborers coming from among these vines, their vines, and the village half hid in the recesses of the mountain. Oh, surely the spirit that inhabits and guards this place has a soul more in harmony with man than those who pile the glacier, or retire to the inaccessible peaks of the mountains of our own country. Serval, beloved friend, even now delights me to record your words, and to dwell on the praise of what you are so eminently deserving. He was a being formed in the very poetry of nature. His wild and enthusiastic imagination was chastened by the sensibility of his heart, his soul overwhelmed with ardent affections, and his friendship was of the devoted and wondrous nature that he worldly minded. The worldly minded teach us to look for only in the imagination, but even human sympathies were not sufficient to satisfy his eager mind. The scenery of extreme nature, which others regard with admiration, he loved with ardor. A small poem from Woodworth's Tintory Abbey. The sound contract haunted him like a passion, the tall rock, the mountain, and the deep and gloomy wood. Their colors and their forms were then to him an appetite, a feeling, and a love that had no need of remoter charm, but thought supplied, or any interest, unborrowed from the eye. And where does he exist now? Is this gentle and lovely being lost forever? Has his mind, so replete with ideas, imaginations, fanciful and magnificent, which formed a world whose existence depended on life of its creator, has his mind perished? Does it now only exist in my memory? No, it is not thus. Your form, so divinely wrought and beaming with beauty, has decayed. But your spirit still visits and consoles your unhappy friend. Pardon the gush of sorrow. These ineffectual words are but a slight tribute to the unexplained worth of Henry. But they soothe my heart, overflowing with the anguish which his remembrance creates. I will proceed with my tale. Beyond Colgay, we descended to the plains of Holland, which resolved to post the remainder of our way, for the wind was contrary, and the stream of the river was too gentle to aid us. Our journey here lost the interest arising from the beautiful scenery, but we arrived in a few days to Rotterdam, where hence we proceeded by sea to England. It was on a clear morning in the latter days of September that I first saw the white cliffs of Britain. The banks of the Thames presented a new scene. They were flat, but fertile. Almost every town was marked by the remembrance of some story. We saw Tilbury Fort, and remembered the Spanish Armada, Gravesend, Woolwich, and Greenwich, places which I had heard of even in my own country. At length we saw the numerous steeples of London, St. Paul's towering above all, and the Tower, famed in English history. Okay. Now I'm gonna say that I'm gonna precipice this really quickly. Um, when Victor was in his woes, of Henry Saval, I'm just gonna say foreshadowing. there's there's a lot of foreshadowing in this that when you read it back you realize, oh shit. I will say Mary Shelley is really good at hiding foreshadowing. Like you just read it and you kind of go, huh, that's so interesting, and then it happens and you're like, wait a minute. And personally, I think that's what makes a great writer, when they do foreshadow something, but you don't realize it's foreshadowing until later. So, chapter 2. London was our present point to rest. We det- uh, we determined to remain several months in this wonderful and celebrated city. Saval desired the intercourse of the men of genius and talent who flourished at the time. But this was with me secondary object. I was principally occupied with the means of obtaining the information necessary for the completion of my promise, and quickly availed myself of the letters of introducing that I had brought with me, addressed to the most distinguished natural philosophers. If this journey had taken place during my days of study and happiness, it would have afforded me inexpressible pleasure. But a blight had come over my existence, and I only visited these people for the sake of the information they might give me on the subject in which my interest was so terribly profound. Company was irksome to me. When alone, I could fill my mind with the sights of heaven and earth. The voice of Henry soothed me, and I could thus cheat myself into transitory peace. But busy, uninterested, joyous faces brought back despair to my heart. I saw an insurmountable barrier placed between me and my fellow man. The barrier was sealed with blood of William and Justine, and to reflect the events connected with those names filled my soul with anguish. But in Saval, I saw the image of my former self. He was inquisitive and anxious to gain experience and instruction. The difference of manners which he observed was to him an intoxicable source of instruction and amusement. He was also pursuing an object he had long had in view. His design was to visit India, in the belief that he had in his knowledge of various languages, and in the views he had taken of this society, the means of materially assisting the progress of European colonization and trade. So basically, he's going to India to help colonize it more. Wow. But yeah, mine. This is like the 1700s, so yeah, Britain still had control over India back then. In Britain, uh, in Britain, only could he further execution of his plan. He was forever busy, and the only check to his enjoyments was my sorrowful and dejected mind. I tried to conceal this as much as possible, that I might not debar him from the pleasures natural to one who was entering on a new scene of life. undisturbed by any care of bitter recollection. I often refused to accompany him, alleging another engagement, that I might remain alone. I now also began to collect the materials necessary for my new creation, and this was to me like a torture of a single drop of water continually falling on my head. Every thought that was devoted to it was an extreme anguish, and every word that I spoke in allusion to it caused my lips to quiver and my heart to palpitate. After passing some months in London, we received a letter from a person in Scotland who had formerly been our visitor at Geneva. He mentioned the beauties of the native country, and asked us if those were not sufficient allurements to introduce us to prolong our journey as far north as Perth. Perth, where he resided. Cheval eagerly desired to accept this invitation, and I, although I abhorred society, wished to view again mountains and streams, and all the wondrous works with which native adorns her chosen dwelling places. We had arrived in England at the beginning of October, and it was now February. We accordingly determined to commence our journey towards the north at the expiration of another month. In this expedition we did not intend to follow the great road to Edinburgh, but to visit Windsor, Oxford, and Matlock, and the Cumberland Lakes. Resolving to arrive at the completion of this tour about the end of July, I packed my chemical instruments and the materials I had collected, resolving to finish my labors in some obscure nook in the northern Highlands of Scotland. Here we quitted London on the 27th of March, and remained a few days in Windsor, rambling in its beautiful forests. This was a new scene to us mountaineers. The majestic oaks, the quality of game, and the herds of stately deer were all novelties to us. From thence we proceeded to Oxford. As we entered the city, our minds were filled with the remembrance of the events which had transpired there more than recently than a century and a half before. It was there that Charles and I had collected his forces. That Charles I had collected his forces. The cities had remained faithful to him, after the whole nation had forsaken his cause to join the standard of parliamentary and liberty. The memory of the unfortunate king and his companions, the amiable Falkland and insolent Goring, his queen and son, gave a peculiar interest to every part of the city, which they might be supposed to have inhabited. The spirit of the elder days formed a dwelling here, and we delighted to trace its footsteps. If these feelings had not found an imaginary gratification, the appearance of the city, and yet in itself sufficient beauty to obtain our admiration. The colleges are ancient and picturesque. The cities are almost magnificent, and the lovely Isis, which flows beside it through meadows or exquisite verdure, is spread forth into a placid expanse of waters, which reflects this majestic assembly of towers and spires and domes, embosomed again aged trees. Hold on, I got a scratch on my head. Oh my goodness. Well, I think we're almost done with this chapter. There's so much about, like, scenery and stuff because of their travels. But it's like, I want to get to the good shit. Just give me the good kush, Mary Shelley, just give me the good stuff. I will say, reading way too much about sceneries does bore me very easily. But different people have their own things. I enjoyed this scene, and yet my enjoyment was embittered both by memory of the past and the anticipation of the future. I was formed for peaceful happiness during my youthful days. Discontent never visited my mind. And if I was overcome by the ennui, the sight of what is beautiful in nature, or the study of what is excellent and sublime in the productions of man, could always interest my heart, and communicate illicitly to my spirits. But I am a blasted tree. The bolt has entered my soul, and I felt that then that I should survive to exhibit that I shall soon cease to be a miserable spectacle, or wicked humanity, pitiable to others, and intolerable to myself. We passed a considerable period at Oxford, rambling among its environs, and endeavoring to identify every spot which might relate to the most animating epoch of English history. Our little voyages of discovery were often prolonged by the successive objects that presented us. We visited the tomb of the illustrious Hampadid. Hampadid. I don't know what that means. I don't know who that is. I don't know English history. And the field on which the patriot fell. For a moment my soul was elevated from its debasing and miserable fears to contemplate the divine ideas of liberty and self-sacrifice of which these sites were monumentous in the remembrance. For an instant I dared to shake off my chains and look around me with a fear and lofty spirit. But the iron had eaten into my flesh, and I sank again, trembling and hopeless, into my miserable self. We left Oxford with regret and proceeded to Matlock, which was our next place of rest. The country in the neighborhood of this village resembled a greater degree the scenery of Switzerland, but everything is on a lower scale, and the green hills whence the crown of distant white Alps, which always attended on the pinny mountains of my native country. We visited the wondrous cave and little cabinets of natural history, where the curiosities are disposed in the same nature as in the collections of Servox and Chamlix. The latter name made me tremble when pronounced by Henry, and I hastened to quit Matlock, with which the terrible scene was thus associated. From Derby, still journeying northwards, we passed two mountains in Cumberland and Westmoreland. I could now almost fancy myself among the Swiss mountains. The little patches of snow which yet lingered on the northern sides of the mountains, the lakes, and the dashing of the rocky streams were all familiar and dear sights to me. Here also we made some acquaintances who almost contrived to cheat me into happiness. The delight of Seville was proportionably greater than mine. His mind expanded in the company of men of talent, and he found on his own nature greater capacities and resources than he could have imagined himself to have possessed while he was associated with his inferiors. I could pass my life here, he said, and among these mountains I should scarcely regret Switzerland and the Rhine. But he found that traveller's life is one that includes much pain amidst its enjoyments. His feelings are forever on the stretch, and when he begins to sink into repose, he finds himself obligated to quit that on which he rests in pleasure for something new, which again engages his attention, and which also he forsakes for other novelties. He had scarcely visited the various lakes of Cumberland and Westmoreland, and conceived an affection for some of the inhabitants, which the period of our appointment with our Scottish friend approached, and we left them to travel on. For my own part, I was not sorry. I had now neglected my promise for some time, and I feared the effects of the daemon's disappointment. He might remain in Switzerland and wreak his vengeance on my relatives. This idea pursued me and tormented me at every moment from which I might otherwise have snatched the repose and peace. I waited for my letters with feverish impatience. If they were delayed, then I was miserable and overcome by thousands of fears. And when they arrived, and I saw the superstition of Elizabeth or my father, I had hardly dared to read and assert my face. Sometimes I thought the fiend had followed me, and might expedite my reminiscences by murdering my companion. When these thoughts possessed me, I would not quit Henry for a moment, but followed him as his shadow to protect him from the fancied rage of his destroyer. I felt as if I had committed such great crime, the consciousness of which haunted me. I was guiltless, but I had indeed drawn down a horrible curse upon my head, as mortal as that of a crime. I visited Edinburgh, which languid eyes and mind, and yet that city might have interests the most unfortunate being. Saval did not like it so well as Oxford, for the antiquity of the latter city was more pleasing to him. But the beauty and regulatory of the new town of Edinburgh, its romantic castle, its envers, and its envors, and or no, I think that's supposed to be environments, but they just cut it down to like a stupid word. And the most delightful in the world. Arthur's Seat, St. Berg's Well, and the Pentland Hills compensated him for the change, and filled him with cheerfulness and admiration. But I was impatient to arrive at the termination of my journey. We left Edinburgh in a week, passing through through, I should know this word. For some reason, I do know a lot of cities in England, even though I'm not English, which is funny. Coupor. Is it Corper? I don't know. Wait. Corper St. Andrews. Let me know if I'm saying that wrong. And along the banks of Tay to Perth, where our friend expected us. But I was in no mood to laugh and talk with strangers, or enter into their feelings or plans with the good humour expected from a guest, and accordingly I told Saval that I wished to make the tour of Scotland alone. Do you? Said I. Enjoy yourself, and let this be our Redden, and let this be our Redden Azores. What the fuck is this word? Oh, and let this be a rendezvous? Is that how you spell rendezvous? Oh my gosh, why is it spelled like that? I may be absent a month or two, but do not interfere with my emotions. I entreat you, leave me to peace and solitude for a short time, and when I return, I hope it will be with a light heart, more congenial to your own temper. Henry wished to dissuade me, but seeing me bent on this plan, ceased to oh God, to remonstrate, ceased to not talk about it anymore. At least their names aren't Oh my god, yeah, I forgot about fucking Dune. Dune is worse. I'm so glad we're not reading Dune. I'd rather kill myself than read Dune out loud to people. Oh my god. Isn't that like a word in Dune? That's what they call the dunes. It's so stupid. Uh they're literally half of Dune is just like a dictionary to all of the words, and you have to read all of it before you even start reading Dune. It's a place in Alaska. Alaska. You had easy words that I could pronounce when I was there. What do you mean you have a word that's that for a dune? It might okay. I guess it might be a name. Might be the true name from the Native Americans, which makes sense because, goddamn, some of their languages is like, oh my gosh, how do you even begin to pronounce that? Or what? There's like a place in like England or Scotland that's like has the long word. What was it? I remember the ending of the word was like golf. Have you seen like the what was it? It was like a weatherman talking about all the different like weathers, and he was able to name that town so well, but the town's name was like so long. Yeah. And he said that right. He said it all right. He didn't even skip a beat. Was looking for that one. Oh my, yeah, they're so funny. It's so funny seeing like everybody just say that. It's so stupid. Hey, yo, there's so many people that are streaming right now. Nice, nice. That means we have a lot of people that we could possibly raid. Anyways, I'm just looking at some stuff because my eyes are starting to hurt. Yes, that weatherman was a true Chad. That weatherman was a true Chad. Apparently, some VTubers say that I'm a Chad because, hey, I'm reading on stream. I'm doing like readings on stream. They're like, you're the true Chad because you can read. And I'm like, are you sure about that? Because they're like, that's so cool that you're reading to your chat. You must be so smart. No, just because I read doesn't mean I'm smart. Oh, it's so funny. It's so funny that they think that. They think I'm a true Chad. No, I'm just stupid. Anyways, where was it? Oh. After I'm done reading this chapter, it's nice. Enjoy your yes. People do enjoy the readings though, so that's why I'm gonna continue doing this. So Saturday will be reading days. Yeah. By the way, the next book we are going to be reading is going to be a lot shorter than this. And it is Charles Dickens' um, a, a, a Christmas Carol. I know we're reading A Christmas Carol before it's Christmas. I know, but I won't be streaming during December, so that's why we're doing it, because I won't be streaming during December. I was planning on to, but I decided not to. So, so yeah. But anyways, yeah, I'm taking December off just because I've been streaming for like a while and I just kind of want to take a little bit of vacation off. But the reason being is that then I can be able to focus more on trying to rig my VTuber my new 3.0 model. So yeah, gonna be live 2D rigging it and all of that sort of stuff. So it gives me more time to be able to prepare for it. Um, but also like, I just kind of want to spend it with my family, and I just want to relax and not have to worry about streaming and just kind of take a mental break because, you know, Christmas. And the other thing is that December is also kind of a really hard emotional time as well, because unfortunately I did have a few family members that passed during that time. So yeah. Yeah. And so it's kind of more of like a very, as much as it is a happy time, it's also kind of a very sad time, and it kind of makes me sad, unfortunately. So I need a break as well. So so every once in a while I might stream, and then I'll take like a month off every now and then just have a little bit of a break and just to relax a bit. Yeah. So so there's that. So that's how things are set up. Twitch interrupted. Oh, I was just no. I was just saying that I just take it off because it's a very kind of bittersweet time. Um it's just a saddening time. But then I will start back up in January. I don't know when, but I will be announcing when I will be back in January. I might not be back the first week of January, maybe the second or third week of January. I'll make sure to make a note of it and post it up so that everybody knows that I'll be on vacation. And that'll be my pinned tweet so that everyone knows that I'm not streaming currently and that this is when I come back. Along with my offline screen will also be saying when I come back. So if you ever are wondering when I am, then you can at least know. So I will be I will be on Twitter still though. I'm not gonna like leave you completely. I'm just not gonna be streaming. Just to kind of step back and take a little break. Maybe get some stuff in order. Yeah. I'm back. Yeah. Just I'm just gonna be like just taking a Twitch break. Taking a Twitter taking a Twitch break. Taking a stream break. That's what I gotta do. So so without a further ado, let us continue on. Testing the printer report, order stuff. Nice. Yeah. Anyways, where am I? Oh, here we are. Uh, he entreated me to write often. I had rather be with you, he said, in your solitary rambles than with these Scottish people, whom I do not know. Hasten then, my dear friend, to return that I may again feel myself somewhat at home, which I cannot do in your absence. Having parted from my friend, I determined to visit some remote spot of Scotland and finish my work in solitude. I did not doubt that, I did not doubt but that the monster had followed, and would discover myself, and would discover himself to me when I should have finished, that he might receive his companion. With this resolution I traversed the northern Highlands and fixed on one of the remotest of the Orkneys as the scene of my labours. It was a place fitted for such work, being hardly more than a rock, whose high sides were continuously beaten upon by waves. The soil was barren, scarcely afforded pasture for a few miserable cows, and oatmeal for its inhabitants, which consisted of 5 persons, whose gaunt and scanty limbs gave tokens of their miserable fare. Vegetables and bread, when they indulged in such luxuries, and even fresh water was to be procured from the mainland, which was about 5 miles distant. On the whole island there were only but 3 miserable huts, and one of these was vacant when I arrived. Thus I hired. It contained but 2 rooms, and these exhibited all the squalidness of the most miserable peasant. The most oh, the miserable penury. Oh my gosh. The thatch had fallen in, the walls were unpleasanted, and the door was off its hinges. I ordered it to be repaired, brought some furniture, and took possession, an incident which would doubtlessly have occasioned some surprise had not all the scenes of the cottagers been had benumbed by want and squalid poverty. As it was, I lived ungazed and unmolested, hardly, thanks for the pittance of food and clothes which I gave. So much does suffering blunt even the coarsest sensation of man. In the retreat I devoted the morning to labor, but in the evening, when the weather permitted, I walked on the stony beach of the sea to listen to the waves as they roared and dashed at my feet. It was a monumentous, yet ever-changing scene. I thought of Switzerland. It was far different from this desolate and appalling landscape. Its hills covered with vines, and its cottages are scantily thickly in the plains. Its fair lakes reflect a blue and gentle sky, and when troubled by the lands, their tumult is but as the play of a lively infant, when compared to the roarings of the giant ocean. In this manner I distributed my occupants when I first arrived, but as I proceeded in my labor it became every day more horrible and irksome to me. Sometimes I could not prevail on myself to enter my laboratory for several days, and at other times I toiled day and night in order to complete my work. It was indeed a filthy process in which I was engaged. During my first experiment, a kind of enthusiasm frenzy had blinded me to the horror of my unemployment. My mind was intently fixed on the consumption of my labor, and my eyes were shut to the horror of my proceedings. But now I went to it in cold blood, and my heart often sickened at the work of my hands. Thus situated, employed in the most detestable occupation, immersed in solitude, where nothing could for an instant call my attention from the actual scene in which I was engaged. My spirits became unequal. I grew restless and nervous. Every moment I feared to meet my persecutor. Sometimes I sat with my eyes fixed on the ground, fearing to raise them, lest they should encounter the object which I so much dreaded to behold. I feared to wander from the sight of my fellow creatures, lest when alone he should come and to claim his companion. In the meantime I worked on, and my labor was already considerably advanced. I looked towards its completion with a tremulous and eager hope, which I dared not trust myself to question, but which was intermixed with obscure forebodings of evil, and made my heart sicken in my bosom. So we are on chapter 3, but I'm going to be taking a quick break to go and get some water and stuff because my throat is starting to hurt and I really need some tea and stuff. So I shall be right back. Pause the recording. There we go. Continued the recording. But yeah, we are on chapter 3, and then we will be on chapter 4, and then we will be done. By the way, we're on page 150, and there's 100. There's basically, we have like 57 pages left. As the further we get through this, we're going to have less and less pages. But so far, I'm aiming to get to chapter 5. We're not going to read chapter 5. We'll read chapter 3, chapter 4, and then we'll only have 3 more chapters to read, and then we are done. Which is great. And when I am going to be reading when I'm going to be reading our next book, I will actually be on the streaming screen because I have the digital ebook. So I'm just going to be having it up on a different screen in order to read it so that you guys can be able to read it as well along with me. If you want to. Not obligated, but yeah. Oh, yes, I am very thirsty. I got my biggest water glass that I have in order to drink from because I am very thirsty. Anyways, let me just. Yeah, so we'll be reading A Christmas Carol by oh my god, by Charles Dickens. Holy shit! Why could I not remember his name? So yeah, we'll be reading that. Now then, chapter 3. I sat one evening in my laboratory. The sun had set and the moon was just rising from the sea. I had not sufficient light for my employment, and I remained idle in a pause of consideration of whether I should leave my labor for the night or hasten its conclusion by an unremitting attention to it. As I sat, a train of reflection occurred to me, which led me to consider the effects of what I was now doing. 3 years before I was engaged in the same manner, and had created a fiend whose unparalleled brutality had destroyed my heart, and filled it forever with the bitterest remorse. I was now about to form another being, of whose dispositions I was alike ignorant. She might become 10,000 times more malignant than her mate, and delight for its own sake in murder and wretchedness. He had sworn to quit the neighborhood of man and hid himself in deserts, but she had not, and she, who in all probability was to become a thinking and reasoning animal, might refuse to comply with a compact made before her creation. They might even hate each other. The creature who already lived loathed his own deformity, and might he not conceive a greater abhorrence for it, which when it came before his eyes in the female form? She also might turn with disgust from him to superior beauty of man. She might quit him, and he be again alone, exasperated by the flesh provocation of being deserted by one of his own species. Even if they were to leave Europe and inhabit the deserts of the New World, yet one of the first results of this symphonies for which the daemon thirsted for the children and the race of devils, would be propagated upon the earth. Who might make the very existence of this species of man a condition precarious and full of terror? Had I a right, for my own benefit, to inflict the curse upon everlasting generations? I had before been moved by the sympathies of the being I had created. I had been struck senseless by the fiendish threats, but now, for the first time, the wretchedness of my promise burst upon me. I shuddered to think that future ages might curse me as their pest, whose selflessness had not hesitated to buy its own peace at the price, perhaps, of the existence of the whole human race. I had trembled and my heart failed within me, when, on looking upon it, I saw, by the light of the moon, the demon casement, at the case, at the casement. A ghastly grin wrinkled his lips as he gazed on me, where I was fulfillment and task which he had allotted to me. Yes, he had followed me in my travels. He had loitered in forests, hid himself in caves, or taken refuge in wide and desert heaths, and now came to mark my progress and claim the fulfillment of my promise. As I looked on him, the commencement expressed the utmost extent of malice and treachery. I thought with a sensation of madness on my promise of creating another like to him, and trembling with passion tore to pieces the thing on which I was engaged. The wretch saw me destroy the creature on those whose future existence he depended for happiness, and with a howl of devilish despair and revenge withdrew. I left the room, and locking the door, made a solemn vow in my own heart never to resume my labors, and then, with a trembling steps, I thought my own apartment. I was alone. None were near me to dissipate the gloom, and revive me from the sickening oppression of the most terrible reverence. Several hours passed. I remained near my window, gazing on the sea. It was almost motionless, for the winds were hushed, and all nature responded under the eye of quiet moon. A few fishing vessels alone stretched the water, and now and then the gentle breeze wafted the sound of voices of the fishermen calling to one another. I felt the silence, although I was hardly conscious of the extreme profundity, profundity until my ear was suddenly arrested by the paddling of oars near the shore, and a person landed close to my house. In a few minutes after, I heard the creaking of the door, and if someone endeavored to open it softly, I trembled from my head to foot. I felt the sorry, got an itch on my nose. I felt the presentiment of who it was, and wished to rouse one of the peasants who dwelt in the cottage not far from mine, but I was overcome by the sensation of helplessness, so often felt in frightful dreams, when you in vain endeavour to fly from an impending danger, and was rooted to the spot. Presently I heard the sound of footsteps about the passage. The door opened, and the wretch whom I dreaded appeared. Shutting the door, he approached me and said in a soothing voice, in a yeah, in a sooth, in a smothered, in a smothered voice, not a smothered voice. Oh, yeah, totally. Hey, dude. So you just killed my creation. Just imagine, like the fucking he walks in, and he's like, hey, so what the fuck did you do? Yeah, no, in a smothered voice. You have destroyed the work which you began. What is it that you intend? Do you dare to break your promise? I have endured toil and misery. I left Switzerland with you. I crept along the thrives of the Rhine, along its willow islands, and over the summits of its hills. I have dealt many months in the heaths of England and among the deserts of Scotland. I have endured incapable fatigue, cold, and hunger. Do you dare destroy my hopes? Begone! I do break my promise. Never will I create another like you, equal in deformity and wretchedness. Slave, I before reasoned with you, but you have proved yourself unworthy of my consideration. Remember that I have power. You believe yourself miserable, but I can make you so wretched that the light of day will be hateful to you. You are my creator, but I am your master. Obey. The hour of my irresolution is past, and the period of your power is arrived. Your threats cannot move me to do an act of wretchedness, but they confirm me in determination of not creating you companion in vice. Shall I, in cold blood, set loose upon the earth a daemon, whose delight in its death and wretchedness? Begone, I am firm. Your words will only exasperate my rage. The master saw my determination and face and gnawed his teeth in the impotence of anger. Shall each man, cried he, find a wife for his bosom, and each beast have its mate? I be alone? I had feelings of affection, and they were requited by detestation and scorn. Man, you may hate, but beware. Your hours will pass in dread and misery, and soon the bolt will fall, which must ravish from you your happiness forever. Are you to be happy, while I grovel in the intensity of your wretchedness? You can blast my own passions, but revenge remains. Revenge henceforth dearer than light or food. I may die, but first you, my tyrant and tormentor, shall curse the sun that gazes on your misery. Beware, for I am fearless and therefore powerful. I will watch with the willingness of a snake, that I may sting with its venom. Man, you shall repent of the injuries you inflict. Devil, cease, and do not poison the air with the sounds of malice. I have declared my resolution to you, and I am no coward to bend beneath words. Leave me. I am inexorable. Inexorable. I don't know what that means. It is well. I go. But remember, I shall be with you on your wedding night. I stared forward and explained, Villain, before you sign my death warrant, be sure that you are yourself safe. I would have seized him, but he eluded me and quitted the house with perception. With perception. In a few moments, I saw him in his boat, which shot across the waters. Which saw. Wait, Nanny. Oh. But shot across the waters was an array of swiftness, and was soon lost amidst the waves. All was again silent, but his words rang in my ears. I burned with rage to pursue the murderer of my peace and precipitate him into the ocean. I walked up and down my room hastily and perturbed, while my imagination conjured up 1,000 imageries to torture and sting me. Why had I not followed him and closed with him in mortal strife? But I had suffered him to depart, and he had detected his course towards the mainland. I shuddered to think who might be the next victim sacrificed to his insistent revenge. And then I thought again of his words. I will be with you on your wedding night. That then was the period fixed for the fulfillment of my destiny, and the hour I should die and at once satisfy the extinguished his malice. The prospect did not move me to fear, yet when I thought of my beloved Elizabeth, of her tears and endless sorrow, when she should find her lover so barbarously snatched from her, tears, the first I had shed for many months, streamed from my eyes, and I resolved not to fall before my enemy without a bitter struggle. The night passed, and the sun rose from the ocean. My feelings became calmer, if it may be called calmness, when the violence of rage sinks into the depths of despair. I left the house, the horrid scene of the last night's contention, and walked on the beach of the sea, which I almost regarded as an insuperable barrier between me and my fellow creatures. Nay, I wish that such should prove. The fact stole across me. I desired that I might pass my life on the barren rock, rarely, it is true, but uninterrupted by any sudden shock of misery. If I returned, it was to be sacrificed, or to see those whom I most loved die under the grasp of a demon whom I had myself created. I walked about the isle with a restless spectre, separated from all it loved, and miserable in the separation. When it became noon, the sun rose higher. I lay down on the grass, and was overpowered by a deep sleep. I had been awake the whole of the preceding night, and my nerves were agitated, and my eyes inflamed by watching the misery. The sleep into which I now sunk refreshed me, and when I awoke I again felt as if I belonged to the race of human beings like myself, and I began to reflect upon what had passed with greater composure. Yet still the words of the fiend rung in my ears like the death knell. They appeared like a dream, yet distant and oppressive as reality. The sun had far descended, and I still sat on the shore, satisfying my appetite, which had become ravenous, with an oaten cake, which I saw a fishing boat. When I saw a fishing boat land close to me, and one of the men brought me a packet. It contained letters from Geneva, and one from Serval, entertaining me to join him. He said that he was wearing away his time fruitlessly where he was. The letters from the friends he had formed in London desired his return to complete the negotiation they had entered into form his Indian enterprise. He could not any longer delay his departure, but as his journey to London might be followed even sooner than he now conjectured, by his longer voyage, he entreated me to bestow as much of my society on him as I could spare. He he besought me, therefore, to leave my solitary island and to meet him at Paris, that we might proceed southwards together. This letter in a degree recalled me to life, and I determined to quit my island and the expiration of 2 days. Yet before I departed, there was a task to perform on which I shuddered to reflect. I must pack my chemical instruments, and for that purpose I must enter the room which had been the scene of my odious work. I must handle those utensils, the sight of which was sickening to me. The next morning, at daybreak, I summoned sufficient courage and unlocked the door of my laboratory. The remains of the half-finished creature whom I had destroyed lay scattered on the floor, and I almost felt as if I had mangled the living flesh of a human being. I paused to collect myself and then entered the chamber, while trembling hands to convey the instruments out of the room, but I reflected that I ought not to leave the relics of my work to excite the horror and subscription of the peants. Oh, hello. Welcome in. The real. Welcome. We're just continuing reading Frankenstein here. Hello. We're currently near the end of Frankenstein, but if you want to ever listen to the beginnings of this, I am slowly posting these on YouTube. So yeah. So Jesse's signing has. Oh, oh, cool. Yeah, yeah, it is really cool. But so, oh my gosh, why can't I not read names today? The real. Wait, does that say they're real salties? Oh my gosh, yes. Oh my gosh, you've come to the right place. Sometimes my chat is really crazy. Today they're calmer, just listening to me read. But some days, some days, I am truly salty. I am. Do I need permission to read the books? To read books on here? No. You do not need permission to read books because the book I am reading is currently within the public domain. Therefore, it is a-okay. But honestly, if it's a yeah, you can read books within public domain if you are because they are public domain books. So the next so yeah. No, but if they're copyrighted, that's your call. Do it your own. Yeah, that's the one thing. If they are copyrighted, so technically you could read fan fiction on here. Technically, because they technically are within public domains, works of art. So yeah. Huh. No, stop, stop, stop. I will shut you down on that. Stop. Don't continue that sentence. This is what also my chat devolves into slowly. We get derailed. We sometimes get derailed, and that's how it goes. But but welcome the real salties. Oh my gosh. But yeah, there's plenty of places that you can find like books that are within public domain. There's like a whole list of public domain books. It's free content. No. It's free real estate is what it is. It's free real estate content. That's what it is. Whenever I see it's free or something, I always say it's free real estate. That's I cannot associate it's free without saying that. I love memes, but now they're just stuck in my head forever. But yeah. Anyways, let us continue on. Oh god damn it, I lost my place. Fantastic. That's what always happens. We get off topic and then I'll lose my place. Uh always always lose the place. Where the was I? Oh, I clicked myself. No. No, where was I? Oh, here we go. With a trembling hand, I conveyed the instruments out of my room. But I reflected that I ought not to leave the relics of my work to excite the horror and suspicion of the peasants. And I accordingly put them into a basket with a great quantity of stones, and laying them up, determined to throw them into the sea that every night, that very night, and in the meantime I sat upon the beach, employed in cleaning the and arranging my chemical apparatus. Oh my gosh. My back hurts from reading and sitting like this so much. Ay, ay, ay. Nothing could be more complete than the alteration that had taken place in my feelings since the night of the appearance of the daemon. I had before regarded my promise with a gloomy despair of the as a thing that with whatever consequences must be fulfilled, but I now felt as if a film had been taken from before my eyes, and that I, for the first time, saw clearly the idea of renewing labors did not for one instant occur to me. The threat that I heard weighed on my thoughts, but I did not reflect that a volunteer act of mine could avert it. I had resolved in my own mind that to create another like the fiend I had first made would be an act of the basest that and most atrocious selfishness, and I banished from my mind every thought that I could lead to a different conclusion. I like that he promised to make, like, another monster, and then he's just like, nah, I changed my mind. Even though the monster was like, hey, you make this for me, and I leave you the fuck alone. Good deal? It's like, nah, sir. Screw you. Not gonna do it again. Oh my gosh. Psych, that's the wrong number. Exactly. Oh my god. Once was bad enough, yes. Yes. I like how he's just like, yeah, psych. Psych. Between 2 and 3 in the morning, the moon rose, and I then, putting my basket around a little skiff, sailed out about 4 miles from the shore. The scene was perfectly solitary. A few boats were returning towards land, but I sailed away from them, and felt as if I was about to commission of a dreadful crime, and avoided with shuddering anxiety and an encounter with any fellow creature. At one time the moon, which had before been clear, was suddenly overspread by a thick cloud, and I took advantage of the moment of the darkness and cast my basket into the sea. I listened to the gurgling sound as it sunk, and then sailed away from the spot. The sky became clouded, but the air was pure, although chilled by the northeast breeze that was then rising. But it refreshed me, and filled me with such agreeable sensation that I resolved to prolong my stay on the water, and fix the rudder in a direct position, stretched myself at the bottom of the boat. Clouds hid the moon. Everything was obscure, and I heard only the sound of the boat as its keel cut through the waves of the mirror, luring me, and in a short time I slept soundly. He like changed his mind because he didn't like being afraid of his own creation. He felt he was God, and he'd wait. Does anyone remember the line from Spy Kids? Like, do you think God stays in heaven because he's afraid of his own creations? Do you remember this line from I forget what movie of Spy Kids it was, but it was like, do you think God stays in heaven because he fears that of which he has created? I think that extremely like goes into this. Like, it's the perfect phrase. It's the perfect phrase for this. No, but you want to know the real reason to why he stopped making it? It was not because he was afraid of the what he would create. I remember that line, did not know it was from Spy Kids. Yeah, it's from Spy Kids. He felt when he was in charge and felt his need to prove his authority. No, actually, you want to know why Victor did it? He was like, literally, he was like, what if this one doesn't go with promises? What if this one, and like, it's a good idea to think about. It's like, if you create something, um, will it actually turn out the way that you think? And I think that's what happened. It was like, I have a feeling like this won't turn out the way that people think it will turn out. And so he literally stopped the work because he wasn't afraid of his creation. It was more of like, this one could be more of a trouble than the one I've already created. So yeah.
The second movie. Yeah, the second movie. Yeah. Damn, I miss Spy Kids. I love Spy Kids. But now now the actors are all growing up and like what was it Jimmy, it was something Cortez. It was like Jimmy or yeah, Jimmy Cortez. Oh my gosh, he's grown up and he has children and he's on TikTok. What the fuck? He still looks the same. He's still got the same face, you know? It's so funny. But yeah, he's on TikTok. There's a lot of like my childhood, like the actors I remember from childhood that are now on TikTok, and it's like, holy shit, what the fuck? There's actually a new show on Disney Plus that's called Bear in the Big Blue House, but it used to be like a PBS Kids show, and I really want to watch it because that was my childhood. Big Bear in the what was it? Bear in the Big Blue House. Oh, I love it. I want to see it again. I want to relive my childhood. Now all they need to bring back is Reading Between the Lions, and we're all covered. Because then we got Bluey, Bear in the Big Blue House, and then Reading Between the Lions, which was actually a to get you interested in reading, and it was really cool. It taught you a lot about reading and writing and what things meant. So I'd like that brought back. Dude, I just realized, why hasn't Disney made a show about imagination with Figment? That would be a cool one. That would be a cool one. I'm sorry, Disney. I'm giving you free real estate here, man. Hire me, Disney. I'm joking. I'm joking. But we're getting off topic. We're getting off topic. Sorry. So he slept. All right. I do not know how long I remained in this situation, but when I awoke, I found that the sun had already mounted considerably. The wind was high, and the waves continually threatened the safety of my little skiff. I found the wind was northeast, and must have driven me far from the coast which I had embarked. I endeavored to change my course, but quickly found that it again made the attempt. The boat would be instantly filled with water. This situation, my only resource was to drive before the wind and confess that I felt a few sensations of terror. I had no compass with me, and was so slenderly acquainted with the geography of this part of the world, that the sun was of little benefit to me. I might be driven into the wide Atlantic, and feel all tortures of starvation, or be swallowed up by the immeasurable waters that roared and baffled round me. Mouse shape. Oh my gosh. If I end up with a mouse shaped letter in the mailbox, I swear to God. I had already been out many hours, and felt the torment of a burning thirst, and preluded to my other sufferings. I looked on the heavens, which were covered by clouds that flew before the wind, only to be replaced by others. I looked upon the sea. It was to be my grave. Fiend, I exclaimed, your task is already fulfilled. I thought of Elizabeth, my father, and of Saval, all left behind, on whom the monster might satisfy his singularity and merciless passions. This, I- this idea plunged me into a reverie so despairing and frightful that even now, when the scene is on the point of closing before me forever, I shudder to reflect on it. Some hours passed thus, but by degrees, as the sun declined towards the horizon, the wind died away into a gentle breeze, and the sea became free from the breaker. And the sea became free from the breakers, but these gave place to a heavy swell. I felt sick, and hardly able to hold the rubber, when suddenly I saw a line of high land towards the south. Almost spent as I was by fatigue and the dreadful suspense I had endured for several months, the sudden certainty of life rushed like a flood of warm joy to my heart. The tears gushed from my eyes. How mutable are our feelings, and how strange is it that clinging love we have of life, even in the excess of misery. I considered another sail with a part of my dress. I constructed another sail with a part of my dress, and eagerly steered my course towards the land. It had a wild and rocky appearance, but as I approached nearer, I easily perceived the traces of civilization. I saw vessels near the shore and found myself suddenly transported back to the neighborhood. What? Oh my gosh. What? Stop. I'm trying to read! Sudden vessels and shores. I saw vessels near the shore and found myself suddenly transported. Rubber ducky dice? It's rubber ducky dice? Oh my god. I'll look at it later. I'll look at the rubber ducky dice later. Hold on. I'll look at... As I was in a state of extreme... I carefully traced the windings of the land and hailed a steep, which I at length saw issuing from behind... Oh, my mom's going to church. From behind a small promontory, as I was in a state of extreme debility. Oh my god. Debilitatingly. Oh my gosh. Oh, never mind this. No, that is so cute. Yes. Rubber duckies are very cute. As I was in a state of extreme debility, I resolved to sail directly towards this town, as a place where I could most easily procure nourishment. Fortunately, I had money with me. As I turned the promontory, I perceived a small, neat town and good harbor, which I entered, my heart bounding with joy at my expectation, at my unexpected escape. As I was occupied in fixing the boat and arranging the sails, several people crowded towards the spot. They seemed much surprised at my appearance, but instead of offering me any assistance, whispered together with gestures that at my other time might have produced in me a slight sensation of alarm. As it was, I merely embarked that they spoke English, and I therefore addressed them in this language. "My good friends," said I, "will you be so kind to tell me the name of this town and inform me where I am?" "You will know soon enough," replied a man with a hoarse voice. Well, my voice is pretty hoarse right now, so think I can do that. Maybe you are to a place that will not prove much to your taste, but you will not be consulted as to your quarters, I promise you. I was exceedingly surprised on receiving so rude an answer from a stranger, and I was also disconcerted on the perceiving the frown and angry countenances of his companions. "Why do you answer me so roughly?" I replied. "Surely it is not the custom of Englishmen to receive strangers inhospitably." There's also frogs, but those are cursed. Oh no. I do not know, said the man, "what the custom of English may be, but it is the custom of Irish to hate villains." While these strangers' dialogue continued, I perceived the crowd rapidly increased. Their faces expressed a mixture of curiosity and anger, which annoyed and in some degree alarmed me. I inquired the way of to the inn, but no one replied. I then moved forward, and murmuring sound arose from the crowd as they followed and surrounded me, where an ill-looking man approaching tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Come, sir, you must follow me to Kirwin's to give an account of yourself." Who is Mr. Kirwin? Why am I to give an account of myself? Is not this a free country? Aye, sir. Free enough for honest folks. Mr. Kirwin is a magistrate. You ought to give account of the death of a gentleman who was found murdered here last night. His answer startled me, but I presently recovered myself. I was innocent, and that could easily be proved. Accordingly, I followed my conductor in silence, and was led to one of the best houses in the town. I was ready to sink from fatigue and hunger, but being surrounded by a crowd, I thought it polite to rouse all my strength that no physical debility might be considered to appearances of conscious guilt. Little did I then suspect the calamity that was in a few moments to overwhelm me, and extinguish in horror and despair all the fear of ignority of death. Ignomorty or death. I must pause here, for it requires all my fortitude to recall the memory of the frightful events which I am about to relate in proper detail to my recollection. Alright. Chapter 4, everybody. Oh my gosh. This is the last chapter for the day. And then next time that we convene. Oh my god. Stop! Hey, I mean I did post some things up, and next week is gonna be good. But oh my gosh. Oh wait, I just realized in November, by the way, guys, I will be taking off the Thanksgiving weekend. I'll be taking that entire weekend off just to be with family. I forgot about that. I forgot about saying that. But hold on. I'm gonna pull this up really quickly. There. But anyways, chapter 4. I was soon introduced into the presence of the magistrate, an old, benevolent man with calm and mild manners. He looked upon me, however, with some degree of severity, and then, turning towards my conductors, he asked who appeared as a witness of this occasion. About half a dozen men came forward, and one being selected by the magistrate, he disposed that he had been out fishing the night before, and his son and brother-in-law, Daniel Nugent, not Nougat. Oh my god, that's not nougat. That's not how you spell nougat. Oh my god. Nugent. When about 10 o'clock they observed a strong northerly blowst rising. They accordingly put in for port. It was a very dark night, as the moon had not yet risen. They did not land at the harbor, but as they had been accustomed, at a creek about 2 miles below. He walked on, first carrying a part of the fishing tackle, and his companions followed him at some distance. As he proceeded along the sails, he approached his foot. He struck his foot against something. He struck his foot against something and fell at his length on the ground. His companions came up to assist him, and by the light of their lantern, they found that he had fallen on the body of a man who was to all appearance dead. Their first suspicion was that it was the corpse of some person who had been drowned and was thrown on the shore by the waves. But on examination they found that the clothes were not wet, and even the body was not then cold. They instantly carried it to the cottage of the old woman near the spot, and endeavored, but in vain, to restore it to life. It appeared to be a handsome young man, about 25 years of age. He had apparently been strangled, for there was no sign of any violence except the black marks of fingers on his neck. Oh, I just realized that whenever they say 5 and 20, they mean 25. Because they would put it like in Roman numeral kind of setting. They would say like you're 20 And then you also have 5 extra years on you about handsome. Must be me. Oh my gosh. The first part of this disposition did not in the least interest me, but when the mark of the fingers was mentioned, I remembered the murder of my brother and felt myself extremely agitated. My limbs trembled and a mist came over my eyes, which obligated me to lean on the chair for support. The magistrate observed me with a keen eye and of course drew an unfavorable arguey from my manner. The son confirmed his father's account, but when Daniel Nugent was called, he swore positively that just before the fall of his companion, he saw a boat with a single man in it at a short distance from the shore. And as far as he could judge by the light of a few stars, it was the same boat in which I had just landed. A woman disposed, and she lived near the beach, and was standing at the door of her cottage, waiting for the return of the fisherman. About an hour before she heard of the discovery of the body, when she saw a boat with only one man in it push off from the part of the shore where the corpse was afterwards found. Another woman confirmed the account of the fisherman having brought the body into her house. It was not cold. They put it into a bed and rubbed it, and Daniel went to the town for an apothecary, but life was quite gone. Several other men were examined concerning my landing, and they argued that with the strong north wind that had arisen during the night, it was very probable but that I had beaten about for many hours and had been obligated to return nearly to the same spot from which I had departed. Besides, they observed that it appeared that I had brought the body from another place, and was likely that I did not appear to know the shore. I might have put it into the harbor ignorantly at a distance of the town, from the place where I had disposed of the corpse. Mr. Kinman, on hearing the evidence, desired that I should be taken into the room where the body lay for interment, that it might be observed what effect the sight of it would produce upon me. The idea was probably suggested by extreme agitation, and exhibited when the mode of murder had been described. I was accordingly conducted by the magistrate and several other persons to the inn. I could not help being struck by the strange coincidences that had taken place during this eventful night. But knowing that I had been conserving with several persons in the island I had inhabited, about the time that this body had been found, I was perfectly tranquil as the consequences of the affair. I entered the room where the corpse lay, and was led up to the coffin. How can I describe my sensations of beholding it? I feel... Oh my gosh. Just, hold on. Oh. I feel yet parched with horror, nor can I reflect that terrible moment, terrible moment without shuddering with agony. The examination, the presence of the magistrate and the witness passed like a dream from my memory when I saw the lifeless body form of Henry Saval stretched before me. I gasped for breath, and throwing myself on the body, I exclaimed, "Have my murderous magnitations deprived you also, my dearest Henry, of life? Too, I have already destroyed. Other victims await their destiny, but you, Saval, my friend, my benefactor, the human frame can no longer support the agonies that I endured, and I was carried out of the room in strong convulsions. A fever succeeded to this. I lay for 2 months on the point of death. My ravings, as I afterwards heard, were frightful. I called myself the murderer of William, of Justine, and of Saval. Sometimes I interrupted my attendants to assist me in the destruction of the fiend by whom I was tormented. and at others I felt the fingers of the monster already grasping my neck and screaming aloud with agony and terror. Fortunately, as I spoke my native language, Mr. Kerm alone understood me, but my gestures had bitter cries were sufficient to affirm the other witnesses. Why did I not die? More miserable than man ever was before, why did I not sink into forgetfulness and rest? Death snatches away my blooming children, and only hopes of their doting parents. How many brides and youthful lovers have been one day in the bloom of health and hope, and the next a prey of worms in the decay of the tomb. Of what materials was I made, that I could thus resist so many shocks, which, like the turning of the wheel, continually renewed the torture? But I was doomed to live, and in 2 months found myself as awakening from a dream in a prison, stretched on the wretched bed, surrounding by gaolers, turkeys bolts, and all the miserable appearance of a dungeon. It was morning. I remember when I thus woke to understanding. I had forgotten the particular I had forgotten the particulars of what had happened, and only felt as if some great misfortune had suddenly overwhelmed me. But when I looked around and saw the barred windows and the squalidness of the room in which I was, all flashed across my memory, and I groaned bitterly. The sound disturbed an old woman who was sleeping in a chair beside me. She was a hired nurse, the wife of one of the Turkins, and her countenance expressed all those bad qualities which often characterize the class. The lines of her face were hard and rude, like that of a person accused to see without sympathy and sights of misery. Her tone expressed her entire indifference. She addressed me in English, and the voice struck me as one that I had heard during my sufferings. "Are you better now?" said she. I replied in the same language with a feeble voice, "I believe I am. But if all be true, indeed I do not dream. I am sorry that I am still alive to feel the misery and horror." For that matter," replied the old woman, "if you mean about the gentleman you murdered, I believe that it were better for you if you were dead, for I fancy it will go hard for you. However, that's none of my business. I sent to nurse you and get you well. I do my duty with safe conscience. It were well if everybody did the same." I turned with loathing from the woman could utter so unfeeling a speech to person just saved, on the very edge of death. But I felt languid and unable to reflect on all that had passed. The whole series of my life appeared to me as a dream. I sometimes doubted it indeed it were all true, for it never presented itself to my mind with the force of reality. As the images floated before me became more distinct, I grew feverish. A darkness pressed around me. No one was near me who soothed me with the gentle voice of a lover. No dear hand supported me. The physician came and prescribed medications, and the old woman prepared them for me. But utter carelessness was visible in the first. An expression of brutality was strongly marked in the visage of the second. Who could be interested in the fate of a murderer? The hangman who would gain this fee. Well, by the way, I ran out of cough drops like a long time ago, so so I am doing all of this and my throat hurts so badly. But we're almost done. We're almost there, everybody. We're getting to the end. We're getting to the end of it, boys. Small break. Well, I only got 4 more pages left, so. Ooh, a stretch. Yeah, boys, I'll take that stretch. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Oh, it's so nice to get just some stretches. Yeah, after this, I'm gonna be. I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that. I don't know. I'll be doing something. I don't know what I'll be doing, but I'll probably be resting somewhere else. So, anyways, so where am I? Oh, here I am. These were my first reflections, but I soon learned that Mr. Kirwan had shown me extreme kindness. He had caused the best room in the prison to be prepared for me. Wretched indeed was the best, and it was he who had provided a physician and a nurse. It is true, he seldom came to see me, for although he ardently desired to revile the sufferings of every human creature, he did not wish to be present at the agonies and miserable ravings of a murderer. He came, therefore, sometimes to see me, but I was not neglected. But his visits were short, and with long intervals. One day, while I was gradually recovering, I was seated in the chair, my eyes half open, my cheeks livid like those in death. I was overcome by gloom and misery, and often reflected uh, I had better seek death than desire to remain in a world which to me was replete with wickedness. At one time I considered whether I should not declare myself guilty and suffer the penalty of the law, less innocent than poor Justine had been. Such were my thoughts when the door of my apartment was opened and Mr. Kirwan entered. His countenance expressed sympathy and compassion. He drew a chair close to mine and addressed me in French. I fear that this place is very shocking to you. Can I do anything to make you more comfortable? I thank you, but all that you mention is nothing to me. On the whole earth, there is no comfort which I am capable of receiving. I know that the sympathy of a stranger can be but a little relief to one bore down as you are by so strange a misfortune. But you will, I hope, soon quit this melancholy abode, for doubtless evidence can easily be brought to free you from the criminal charge. That is my least concern. I am, by a course of strange events, become the most miserable of mortals. Persecuted and tortured as I am and have been, can death be any evil to me? Um, honestly, I'm betting that when Mary Shelley wrote this, when it said that it was changing to French, it would have actually been written in French. Because back then, like, knowing French or like being able to read French was something, because like how everybody is learning says that uh what a Mongolian or Chinese will be the new language of tomorrow. Well, because if you don't know, a lot of rich people teach their children Chinese and Mandarin, not Mongolian, and Mandarin, um, because they think that that will be the future language of tomorrow. Well, in this day and age, they thought French would be the next one because France was really improving on a lot of stuff. So, fun things, fun things. Okay. Nothing, indeed, could be more unfortunate and anguish and and agonizing than the strange chances that have lately occurred. You were thrown by some surprising accident on this shore, renowned for its hospitality, seized immediately and charged with murder. The first sight that was presented to your eyes was the body of your friend murdered in so unaccountable a manner and placed, as it were, by some fiend across your path. I think it will go back to grunts. They have seen Planet of the Apes. Oh my gosh, yes. 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 That is the true new language. That is the true new language that will come up is just we already have certain streamers and YouTubers that are returning to Monkey, so if anything, yes, it is true. That shall be the new language. That shall be it. I just want to. As Mr. Kirwan said this, notwithstanding the agitation I endured on this repro- retrospect of my sufferings, I also felt considerable surprise at the knowledge he seemed to possess concerning me. I suppose some astonishment was exhibited in my countenance, for Kimura hastened to say, immediately upon your being taken ill, all the papers that were on your person were brought to me, and I examined them, that I might discover some trace by which I could send to your relations on account of your misfortune and illness. I found several letters, and among others, on which I discovered from its commencement to be formed from your father. Instantly wrote to Geneva. Nearly 2 months have elapsed since the departure of my letter, but you are ill. Even now you tremble. You are unfit for agitation of any kind. This suspense is 1,000 times worse than the most horrible event. Tell me the new scene of death has been acted, and whose murder I now to lament. Your family is perfectly well, said Mr. Kimmer with gentleness, and someone, a friend, has come to visit you. I know not by what chain of thought the idea presented itself, but it instantly darted into my mind that the murderer had come to mock at my misery, and taught me that the death of Saval as a new instrument for me to comply with the hellish desires. Put my hand therefore my eyes and cried in agony, "Oh, take him away! I cannot see him! For God's sake, do not let him enter." Mr. Kiram regarded me with a troubled countenance. He could not help regarding my exclamation. There we go. As a presumption of my guilt, and said, in rather a severe tone, "I should have thought, young man, that the presence of your father would have been welcome instead of inspiring such violent reverence." "My father?" cried I, while with every feature and every muscle was relaxed in anguish to pleasure. "Is my father indeed come? How come? How kind! How very kind! But where is he? Why does he not hasten to me?" My change of manner surprised and pleased the magistrate. Perhaps he thought that the former explanation was a momentary return of delirium, and now he instantly resumed his former benevolence. He rose and quitted the room with my nurse, and in a moment my father entered. Nothing at this moment could have given me greater pleasure than the arrival of my father. I stretched out my hand to him and cried, "Are you then safe, Elizabeth, and Ernest?" My father calmed me with assurances of their welfare, and endeavored my dwelling on these subjects so interesting to my heart, to raise my desponding spirits. But he soon felt that a prison cannot be the abode of cheerfulness. What a place is this that you inhabit, my son? said he, looking mournfully at the barred windows and wretched appearance of the room. You travel to seek happiness, but a faulty seems to pursue you, and poor Sauveur. The name of my unfortunate and murdered friend was an agitation too great to endure in my weak state, and I shed tears. Alas, my father, replied I. Soon destiny of the most horrid kind hangs over me, and I must live to fulfill it, or surely I should have died on the coffin for Henry. We were not allowed to converse at any length of time for the persecution state of my health, precautionary state of my health, rendered every precaution necessary that could ensure tranquility. Mr. Kirwin came in and insisted that my strength should not be exhausted by too much exertion. But the appearance of my father was to me like that of a good angel, and I gradually recovered my health. As my sickness quitted me, I was absorbed by a gloomy black melancholy, and nothing could dissipate. The image of Sauveur was for ever before me, ghastly and murdered. More than once the agitation into which these reflections threw me made my friends dread a dangerous relapse. Alas, why did they preserve so miserable and detested a life? It was surely that I might fulfill my destiny, which is now drawing to a close. Soon, oh, very soon, will death extinguish these throbbings and relieve me from the mighty weight of anguish that bears me to dust, and in execution the award of justice, I shall also sink to rest. Then the appearance of death also distant, although the wish was ever present to my thoughts, and I often sat for hours motionless and speechless, wishing for some mighty revolution that might bury me and my destroyer in its ruins. The season of the assizes approached. I had already been 3 months in prison, and although I was still weak and in continual danger of relapse, I was obligated to travel nearly 100 miles to the country town where the court was held. Mr. Kirwin charged himself with every care of collecting witnesses and arranging my defense. I was spared the disgrace of appearing publicly as a criminal, as in the case was not brought before the court that decides on life and death. The grand jury rejected the bill on its being approved that I was on the Orkney Islands at the hour the body of my friend was found, and fortnight after my removal I was liberated from prison. My father was enraptured on finding me freed from the vexations of a criminal charge, and I was again allowed to breathe the fresh atmosphere and permitted to return to my native country. I did not participate in these feelings, for to me the walls of the dungeon or palace were alike hateful. The cup of life was poisoned forever, and although the sun shone upon me as upon the unhappy and gay of heart, I saw around me nothing but a dense and frightful darkness, penetrated by no light but the glimmer of 2 eyes that glared upon me. Sometimes they were the expressive eyes of Henry, laughing in death, the dark orbs nearly covering by the lids, and the long black lashes that fringed them. Sometimes it was the watery, cloudy eyes of the monster, as I first saw them in my chamber at Ingle. My father tried to awaken in me the feelings of affection. He talked of Geneva, which I should soon visit, of Elizabeth and Ernest. But these words only drew deep groans from me. Sometimes, indeed, I felt a wish for happiness, and thought, with melancholy delight, of my beloved cousin, or longed with a devouring mal de pos, mal de doux pas, I don't know how to speak French, to see once more the blue lake and rapid Rhone that had been so dear to me in early childhood. Oh, oh my goodness. What the hell? Oh, I think my headset disconnected. Wait, holy shit, you're not able to hear that? That's so funny. I think all the sound broke. Oops. I think all the sound broke because it usually is connected to my headset, and my headset died. Oops. Because I haven't been like listening to anything in the background, so it just straight up went nope. Here, let me just connect my headset, and we're gonna hope that it fixes it, but it probably won't. At least you still get the other stuff, but you're not gonna get any sound redeems. All the sound redeems are probably broken now. I should have probably been listening to sounds or music in the background, but nope. Yeah, after 3 minutes of inactivity, my thing just goes. Anyways, um, here, let me do this really quickly. No, no. Let's go over here. Or you know what? There. There we go. I have some sound going in the background right now, so that at least it sounds like my headsets are working. Maybe that should fix things. Anyways. uh Oh yeah, so my father tried to awaken the feelings. Alright, and we're right here at the bottom. That had been so dear to me in early childhood, but my general state of feelings was a torpor in which a prison was as welcome a residence as the divinest scene in nature. And these fits were seldom enraptured, but by paroxysm. Oh my gosh, it's the weird word. Are you kidding me? Paroxysm. What the fuck is this word? I fucking hate this word because it looks like a word that's super stupid to spell. Oh, there you go. It's paroxysm. Why? But by paroxysm of anguish and despair. At these moments, I often endeavored to put an end to the existence I loathed, and it required unceased attendance and vigilance to restrain me from committing some dreadful act of violence. Yet one duty remained to me, the collection of which finally triumphed over my selfish despair. It was necessary that I should return without delay to Geneva, there to watch over the lives of those I so fondly loved, and to lie in wait for the murderer that if any chance led to the place of its concealment, or if he dared again to blast me by the presence, I might, with unfailing aim, put an end to the existence of the monstrous image which I had endued with the mockery of a soul still more monstrous. My father still desired to delay our departure, fearful that I could not sustain the fatigues of a journey, for I was a shattered wreck, the shadow of a human being. My strength was gone. I was a mere skeleton, and fever night and day preyed upon my wasted frame. Still, as I urged over leaving Ireland, still I urged over leaving Ireland with such inquitable and impatience, my father thought it best to yield. He took our passage on the board a vessel bound to oh my gosh, Havre de Grace, and sailed with a fair wind from the Irish shores. It was midnight. I lay on the deck, looking at the stars, listening to the dashing of the waves. I hailed the darkness that shut Ireland from my sight, and my paws beat with a feverish joy that when I reflected that I should soon see Geneva. The past appeared to me in the light of a frightful dream, yet the vessel in which I was, the wind that blew me from the deserted shore of Ireland, and sea which surrounded me, told me too forcibly that I was deceived by no vision, and that Saval, my friend and dearest companion, had fallen a victim to me and the monster of my creation. I repassed in my memory my whole life, my quiet happiness while residing with my family in Geneva, the death of my mother, and my departure for Ingolstadt. I remembered, shuddering, the mad enthusiasm that hurried me on the creation of my hideous enemy. I called to mind the night in which he first lived. I was unable to pursue the train of thought. 1,000 feelings pressed upon me, and I wept bitterly. Ever since my recovery from that fever, I had been in the custom of taking every night a small quantity of ladium, for it was by means of this drug only that ladium, for it was only by means of this drug that I was enabled to gain the rest necessary for the preservation of life. Oppressed by the recollection of my various misfortunes, I now swallowed double my usual quantity, and soon slept profoundly. But sleep did not afford me respite from the thought and misery. My dreams presented 1,000 objects, and scared me. Perceiving my restlessness and scared me. Towards morning I was possessed by a kind of nightmare. I felt the fiend's grasp in my neck, and cold, and could not free myself from it. Groans and cries rang in my ears. My father was watching over me, perceiving my restlessness, awoke me, and dashing waves were around. Okay. Were around the cloudy sky above. The fiend was not here. A sense of security, a feeling that a truce was established between the present hour and the irresistible, disastrous future, imparted to me a kind of calm forgetfulness of which the human mind is by its structure peculiarly susceptible. There we go. And that is the end of what we have for today's reading. For today's readings. Next time we will be ending this frightful story. Cause oh my gosh, because again, it only gets worse from here. Hold on. Oh, that's not what I wanted to click on. I meant this. Oh, I see. Oh, Daiko, you're just coming in at the end. We just finished. We literally just finished. But hello, friend. You know what? Let's see. Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah. It was, it's getting bad. That's all I have to say. That's all I have to say about this. This is the idea when always say that it's just only going to get worse from here. It just it always gets worse from here. And I don't know what to think. But anyways, we're gonna go and raid somebody that's doing some spooky gameplay. Because he's been going through Resident Evil and I've been meaning to catch his streams, so we're gonna go and raid my a good froggy friend of ours. Is that it? Yep. There you go. Spooky games. Yeah. Yeah, they play some spooky games. So... Oh my gosh. No, back. Just... Doctor... Yeah. But... Without a further ado, thank you all so much for watching and enjoying this reading. We will be finishing the book next week. If you wanted to go back and listen to any of the previous readings, they are slowly being posted on YouTube. So yeah. So without further ado, thank you all so much for watching. As I always say, may the wind guide you. Until next time. Goodbye.